There'll be food and drink and ghosts, and perhaps even a few murders. You're all invited.
I love ghost stories, and in fact I'd say it's one of my top 2 favorite kinds of horror. To me, there's few things better than going on a drive at night, listening to eerie tales of ghosts and spirits, or even just staying at home, getting cozy, turning off the lights and watching a spooky ghost movie that gives you the feeling that something might be watching you. I can't say I truly believe in ghosts, but it is something I want to believe in. I've actually been on a few paranormal investigations myself. We didn't see any ghosts, however we did find a dead porcupine, which wasn't creepy, it just kind of bummed me out. Anyways, this video isn't about dead porcupines, it's instead about my favorite ghost story of all time and one of my favorite paranormal horror films of all time. Greetings everyone and welcome back to Dunwich Manor. Today I'm talking to you guys about The Woman in Black from 1989. The Woman in Black is a gothic horror story written by Susan Hill back in 1982. It's essentially about a solicitor in the early 1900s England being sent to a small town in the English countryside to finalize his deceased client's paperwork. As he's doing this, he starts to notice strange things happening, including some woman dressed in black kind of appearing wherever he is. The worst part is there's something especially sinister about her appearance, but we don't really know what it is. I love this story so much because it's wonderfully atmospheric and spooky. It's written so well that you can really picture yourself in the main character's shoes, which makes it a lot more eerie. Before I get into the full video, let me quickly explain how I'll be covering The Woman in Black. There are 2 main film adaptations of The Woman in Black, one from 1989 and one from 2012 with Daniel Radcliffe. The 2012 version actually has a sequel, but I don't think I'll be covering that unless you guys want me to, so make sure to let me know down in the comments if you do want me to cover it. In this video, I'll be covering the 1989 movie, and in the part 2 to this video, I'll be covering the 2012 version. Alright, that's enough of that, let's get into the movie. The movie starts out with a very nice score. It's a little eerie, but quite beautiful. It honestly sets up the tone of the film very nicely. We meet our main character of the film, a young man named Arthur. In this movie, his last name is Kidd, but in the book, his last name is Kipps. There are a few changes like this in the movie, but none of them are too relevant to the plot. Arthur's a solicitor in a law firm in early 1900s England. We get to see that although he does have an important position, he still has a kind of youthful playfulness to him. Unfortunately, his boss, Mr. Sweetman, doesn't like this and thinks he needs to be taking on more responsibilities at work if he wants to elevate his career.
Do you see yourself as having a future with this practice? A partnership, perhaps, ultimately?
I hope so, sir.
Then, sir, you must learn to take yourself seriously.
He then gives Arthur a task, partially so Arthur can prove himself, and partly because Sweetman doesn't have time to do it himself. Arthur's to go to the countryside and settle the affairs of the law firm's recently deceased client, Alice Drablow. Arthur understandably doesn't want to go, as this could apparently take up to a week or 2, and this poor guy's got a full family at home. Sadly, at this point in his career, he doesn't really have a choice.
Got to go away for a week or 2.
What?
That's business. Old Sweetman made it quite clear it's essential to my advancement.
And with that, Arthur is off to the small town of Crithen Gifford, which is a really fun name to say, and I was very bummed out when I found out this isn't a real town. On the train ride, Arthur meets a man called Sam Tuvey. Apparently, Mr. Tuvey is from Crithen Gifford, and he acts a little strange when he learns that Arthur is Mrs. Drablow's solicitor.
My name's Arthur Kidd.
Sam Tuvey.
You evidently knew her, Mr. Tuvey.
Well, hardly that. Not in recent times. I had no cause to visit her. And even if I had...
It's small interactions like this that make the story nice and eerie. We don't get any direct information, but this conversation was just enough to make us feel a little weird about who this Mrs. Drablow was. As a result of this, Arthur has made a new friend in Mr. Tuvey, which I can say a friend is a very nice thing to have when you're going to a new place.
Mr. Kidd, if you should need anything at all, man, that's where you can find me.
Thank you.
Once Arthur gets to the inn he'll be staying at, the innkeeper all but confirms that there is something strange about Mrs. Drablow. The next day, Arthur heads into town with the local solicitor, Mr. Pepperell. As they attend Mrs. Drablow's funeral and the priest gives a eulogy, Arthur notices a somewhat mysterious woman dressed in black standing behind him. He sees her once again when they step outside to bury the coffin.
In the sure and certain hope of the resurrection to eternal life, through our Lord Jesus Christ, who shall change the body of our low estate, that it may be like unto his glorious body, according to the mighty working whereby he is able to subdue all things to himself.
She doesn't do much, she just kind of stands there, but I really like how this is done. There's nothing especially threatening about her, but her pale skin and lack of movement kind of makes her seem like a corpse. As Arthur and Mr. Pepperell are talking, a group of children nearby start giggling. I'm assuming because Arthur's a stranger in town. This might seem like a very minor thing, but Mr. Pepperell has a very strange reaction for some reason.
Go away! Quick! Get away from here!
Mr. Pepperell, what's wrong?
They shouldn't watch like that.
Later, Arthur is in town when a little girl gets hit by a log cart. Luckily, Arthur is able to jump in and save the girl before things can get worse. This really shows that Arthur has a good heart, but it does make you notice that nobody else decided to jump in and help. I wonder why. Even later that day, a coachman named Keckwick takes Arthur to Mrs. Drablow's home. It's a mysterious building that goes by the name of Eel Marsh House. This is seriously one of the coolest spooky buildings I've seen in a horror film, mainly because of its location. It's basically isolated from the main part of town by a long causeway and marshes. The only pathway to the house gets flooded by the tide and fog, making it virtually impossible to travel it at certain times of the day. Once they get there, Keckwick shows Arthur around a bit, pointing out that the house actually does have electricity despite its age. As Arthur takes in the beauty of the surrounding property, he starts to feel like he's being watched. That's right, the woman in black has returned. I gotta say, imagining this in real life, this situation would be incredibly unnerving. It's one thing to be stared at, but to have that person that's staring at you just appear wherever you are, that's extra creepy. While back in the house, Arthur finds what I believe is a phonograph. If it's not, please let me know down in the comments. On the phonograph, Arthur then hears recordings from the now deceased Mrs. Drablow. It sounds like she wasn't doing very well in her final days.
Then it was bad. A bad night.
Arthur then walks outside into the surrounding fog or sea frets that's surrounding the house. He hears screaming and some kind of horrible accident happening, but he can't see anything. Luckily, Keckwick comes by and picks him up, but Arthur's still pretty shaken up from what he just heard. Arthur visits a graveyard later that day, only to find that an unusually large amount of young children have died, including Mr. Sam Toovy's son. This, of course, only adds to the mystery of the town. Arthur visits Sam Toovy for dinner that night, and he mentions the woman he's been seeing.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Never have.
Why not?
They were just stories.
Sam believes him and warns him not to go back to the house. But Arthur has his mind set and he decides he will be going back to the house to finish his job. So Mr. Toovy sends his dog Spider with him to keep him company.
Take the dog.
Sorry?
You'll need a companion.
Arthur heads back to Eel Marsh House, and while he's there, he starts to hear the screams again. He finally determines that it's the sound of a coach getting stuck in the marshes and a woman and a child screaming. But the strange thing is, it seems to repeat exactly the same every time. This part of the movie actually gets pretty creepy as Spider starts to bark at a random locked room in the house. When Arthur goes to break it down, the door slowly opens by itself. Upon entering the room, he finds that it's a children's playroom with some pretty creepy toys. Then, out of nowhere, he starts hearing a child's voice. This part's especially creepy just because of how intense the music is. The sharp violins, mixed with the lights going out, create a really desperate sense of urgency. Spider runs out of the house and into the marshes after hearing some weird noises, leaving Arthur all alone in the house. Or is he? Arthur once again hears screaming on the marshes, and his mental state finally starts to crumble. Arthur starts listening to Mrs. Drablow's recordings again to look for answers. Arthur begins to realize that Mrs. Drablow wasn't just also haunted by the woman in black, but apparently she was related to her.
When she came last night, I mocked at her. I will not be feared of my own kin.
Mr. Toovy shows up to check on Arthur, and he brings the excellent news that he found Spider alive on the marshes. Sam then begins to help Arthur putting the clues together around the woman in black. Probably not necessary anymore since this movie is decades old, but big spoiler warning. If you don't want to get spoiled, then stop watching. It turns out that Mrs. Drablow couldn't have children, so she adopted the child of her disturbed sister, Janet Goss. Janet had a scandalous child named Nathaniel, so the kid had to be kept a secret. Because of this, the child was given to Alice Drablow to be taken care of. But eventually, her sister Janet began to miss Nathaniel too much. Unfortunately, the day that Janet came to steal her son back, eventually the coach got lost in the marshes and sunk, killing both Nathaniel and Janet.
Drablow, adopted son of Mrs. Alice Drablow, aged 6 years. Death by suffocation and drowning. And Janet Goss, spinster, aged 35. In the marsh.
So it turns out that the woman in black is the sister of Mrs. Drablow, Janet Goss herself. Arthur runs to the nursery to try to put more clues together, but passes out when he finds that it's been completely trashed by some kind of paranormal activity. Luckily, Tuvey is there to take him back to the inn safely. He explains to Arthur that every time the woman in black is seen, a child dies, which explains the large amount of child graves and the accident with the little girl in town. Apparently, the woman in black is on a mission of vengeance, as she takes people's children just as she lost hers.
What comes of it?
Haven't you guessed?
Say it.
Somehow, a child dies.
As Arthur's back in his room recovering, he gets a bit of a shock.
Nathaniel?
After looking at the comments on this movie, this scene scared the hell out of a lot of people when they were younger. I must say, as an adult, I don't find this scene particularly scary, but I do definitely understand how it would freak you out as a kid, especially if you're not expecting it. This event, of course, messes up Arthur pretty badly. It's in fact so bad that his wife actually comes to Crith and Gifford to take him home. Tuvey informs Arthur that Eel Marsh House actually burned down while Arthur was recovering from his fever. This means that Arthur is able to return home and no longer has any work to do. Once Arthur's home, it feels like a breath of fresh air. His family is glad to have him back, but Arthur does still have PTSD from the events in Crith and Gifford. The next day, Arthur finds that a trunk from Eel Marsh House was delivered to him, meaning something survived the fire. Not long after that, he finds out that the woman in black may have actually followed him back.
Jack, what did he say?
Oh, nothing. It was a she, anyway.
A woman? What was she like?
Oh, I didn't see her face. But she might have been a widow, the sort of clothes she had on.
In a desperate move, Arthur burns the contents of the trunk, hoping to get rid of the woman in black. In doing so, he burns his office, leading him to confront his boss about the haunting and the curse.
You knew, didn't you? You knew all along, and you still let me die!
The next day, to get over the stress of all the recent events, Arthur goes with his family onto a nice boat trip. Unfortunately, this is the last time that Arthur sees the woman in black. As he stares at her in fear, a nearby tree collapses and falls onto the boat, killing Arthur and his entire family in a tragic end. And so the woman in black goes on, hateful, malevolent, a silent omen and curse for those that would live the life that she never could. So that was The Woman in Black from 1989. I thoroughly enjoyed that film. The performances are solid, it has a creepy atmosphere, and it's adapted pretty well. I really like how Arthur is terrified at certain points, making the situations feel much more real. Let me know what you guys thought of the movie down in the comments. In my next video, I'll be covering the 2012 version, so make sure to look out for that one. Thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribing, and I'll see you all next time at Dunwich Manor.